is only one existence, the self, and we are that self. Our very nature is the self. Self alone is consciousness. This entire world is gross. Self alone is truth. The whole world is false. Until the truth is realized, the false seems true, and the true seems false. Self is the basis of this world. Self embodies immortality, knowledge, peace, light, happiness, and bliss. Self is deathless, ever young, eternal, infinite, and transcendental. The water cannot drench it, the fire cannot burn it, and the wind cannot shake it. It has neither a beginning nor an end. It has neither birth nor death. It is beyond time, thought, and qualities. Such self is continuously shining within our hearts on its own. Whatever the jnani refers to as self, the devotee calls it God. Self is the embodiment of bliss. Therefore, we always desire bliss. Self is the embodiment of happiness. Hence, we always wish to remain happy. Self is the embodiment of love. Therefore, we always desire love. Self is beautiful. Therefore, we always desire beauty. Self is deathless. Therefore, we desire immortality. The cloud masks the sun. Likewise, the cloud of ego masks the sun called self. Therefore, we cannot attain self-realization, though the self is very much within our hearts. Self-realization is the very goal of our life. Only those who devotedly hear and contemplate about the self and constantly abide in the self can break the shackles of ego. Self is revealed only to those who transcend their ego. Though you may have an intense yearning to attain self, self is waiting much more intensely to reveal itself. The birth in which the self is experienced becomes your last birth.
Liberation implies release. Release from what? Release from ignorance. What is ignorance? The ego itself is ignorance. The first thought, called I, is ignorance. The thought, I am body only, binds the jiva. Liberation is not a thing. Our very nature is liberation. It is only called mukti, kaivalya, nirvana, and the kingdom of heaven. Liberation is not something achieved after death. We need to contemplate, understand, and experience it when we are very much in this body and this world. The bliss contained in liberation is not something to be attained. It shines within our hearts only. It is revealed when the delusion vanishes. You mistakenly believe it exists far away due to your faulty thinking faculty. You are already the one who you want to attain. You will understand this truth only after achieving self-knowledge.
One who possesses self-knowledge is a jnani. He realizes his very nature, the self. Only a jnani can love this world. The body of a jnani is equivalent to a temple. God takes up the responsibility of protecting it. A jnani's activities happen according to his body's destiny, but a jnani does not have a doership. Jnani has no work, either in this world or in the other worlds. Silence is the very nature of jnani. Jnani need not think of doing good to the world. The world benefits from the mere presence of a jnani's body. We need not desire the fragrance of a jasmine flower. The fragrance comes out naturally. Similarly, the presence of a jnani is filled with peace, power, and brightness. He who performs miracles is not a jnani, but he who has equanimity is a jnani. One who floats in air or walks on water is not a jnani. One who transcends the death and desire is only a jnani. Jnani does not view the world to be separate from him. The glory of jnani has to be viewed only on his face. It cannot be found in books. One who finds the source of his mind becomes a jnani. One cannot merge with God if he doesn't become a jnani.
Only a self-realized soul is eligible for the word guru. Guru is not different from God. As it is challenging to adore the formless God, out of love for jivas, God himself takes a form and incarnates as guru. There is nothing equivalent to the grace of the guru. He is your guru, who reduces the force of your habits, introverts your mind, and bestows you with self-knowledge. Your guru alone chases and protects you throughout your births until you attain self-knowledge. The flesh and bones chewed by a tiger may fall, but one cannot escape Guru's grace. The recipient of the grace of Guru will be certainly protected. Not everyone who declares themselves to be a guru becomes a guru. Whoever chants the mantra does not become a guru. One who introverts your mind by initiating a mantra is eligible to be called a guru. A person with a pure track record is eligible to become a guru. The Mahatma, whose sight awakens your consciousness, the purest of the pure, whose words chase you, the sacred man, by touching whose feet your mind gets introverted, the holy man, whose presence takes you to the ultimate, he alone is your guru. One who expects something from you is not a guru but a burden. We can never clear the debt of our guru, who bestows us with self-realization. Any God greater than guru does not exist, does not exist, does not exist. The only way to clear guru's debt is to attain a state of guru.
The first thought I, limited to the body, is called ego. This first thought I, is poisoning the other thoughts. The entire creation is dependent upon a single pillar called ego. The body, world, and God become true as long as the ego exists. After the ego perishes, all three become false. As long as we limit ourselves to the body, we cannot get liberated from the ego. The ego itself results as disturbance. This ego is born out of ignorance. Ignorance itself is sin. The ego is formless, but as long as it exists, it clings to one form or another. God has put the entire delusion into the ego alone. The jiva is born when the ego is born, and the jiva dies when the ego dies. As we carry the weight of our ego, our lives seem burdensome. No one can become a jnani without sacrificing his ego. There is no penance greater than leading an egoless life.
Our likes and dislikes are the root cause of our disturbance. Whether you call them likes and dislikes or lust and anger, they are one and the same. Lust is born out of delusion. Lust implies desire. Likes and dislikes are born out of lust. If anyone becomes an obstacle in fulfilling our desires, we start hating them. When anyone praises us, we start increasing our attachment to them, and if anyone abuses us, we start hating them. Their likes, dislikes, and lust, anger are burning everyone. Though it is difficult to transcend lust, it is not impossible. Only those attain jnana, who transcend their death and desire. None can fulfill their lust or desire. Lust or desire knows only hunger, but not indigestion. By fulfilling one's lust, one cannot transcend the same. Man gets lust or anger only in the form of a thought. Man cannot perform any work without thought. Therefore perform self-enquiry and find out the origin of thought. Self is revealed there itself. None can transcend their lust or desire until self is revealed. One who is devoid of likes and dislikes have no other work in this world.
The I thought is the first thought. The combination of I thought with the other thoughts constitutes the mind. The mind is also called jiva. Though the body dies, the jiva does not die. We are thoughtless in the deep sleep, where we are mindless, bodiless, worldless, and godless, and therefore remain very blissful. As you wake up from deep sleep, the I thought arises. All your other disturbances follow the same. Your wife and children alone don't constitute your worldliness. Even your mind constitutes your worldliness. The mind has neither a name nor a form, but it clings to some name or form until its destruction. If the food ingredients feed your body, the name and form feed your mind. Everything is created by your mind. There is nothing visible in this world that is not created by the mind. The mind creates the world, lives in it, and gets trapped in it, getting carried away in the cycle of birth and death. The mind that has created this world also has the power to destroy it. A reformed mind becomes widened and takes the form of the self. When all the thoughts within the heart cease to exist, there is no more existence for the mind. When the sticks in the stove are removed one after the other, the fire to lighten the stove ceases to exist. Similarly, when your mind is devoid of thoughts, your mind gets destroyed. Once the mind is destroyed, you attain self-knowledge. As long as the mind is extroverted, no amount of japa or meditation can bring you self-knowledge. Only the reformed mind gets introverted. All the spiritual efforts are only for the reformation of the mind. Only their mind is reformed, who perform selfless work, remain in the holy company, listen to the beneficial words, and constantly contemplate the self. One who swallows the mind becomes a yogi, and one who surrenders to it becomes a bogi.
Irrespective of your caste, sex, personal god, and guru, you can attain liberation in this world or any other world, in this birth or any other birth, only through the gate called purity of mind. There is no work greater than the purification of the mind. The impurities of the mind have to be cleansed using water, which is called devotion.
Self-control or mind control is not possible without sense control. The mind cannot be purified without self-control. An impure mind cannot attain self-realization. Equanimity is possible only to those who have attained self-realization. Equanimity is the essence of the entire yoga. Without sense control, one cannot tread the path toward God. Even if the entire world unites and stands against you, it cannot harm you if your senses are within your control. Controlled senses act as friends and help us. Senses cannot be controlled by contemplating worldly objects. Senses can be controlled only by the constant contemplation of the self.
Without controlling the mind, one cannot attain peace. As long as the mind is suppressed, everyone remains peaceful. As the waves arise by throwing a stone into a lake, a small blow upon the ego distorts the mind immediately. We become angry and lose our peace. If a man can remain peaceful and stable despite the ups and downs in life, it is a symbol of his control over the mind. As long as the mind's exuberance exists, none can remain peaceful. Permanent peace is experienced only by those whose minds are completely destroyed. Contemplation of the self bestows us with peace, and contemplation of the world begets restlessness.
Good deeds beget merit, and bad deeds beget demerit. However, both merit and demerit are within the limitations of the mind. As you go on earning merit, you get the desire to attain self-realization. Therefore, our elders prescribed that we perform good deeds. Good deeds cannot bring us liberation. It is only the self-knowledge that brings us liberation. Money cannot bring self-realization. It can be achieved only by perpetual dispassion.
Discrimination, when practiced, results in dispassion. When we work without doorship, it results in dispassion. Dispassion resembles an axe. One who cuts the tree of ego using the axe called dispassion will attain self-knowledge. Dispassion arising out of discrimination is permanent, whereas dispassion arising out of despair is temporary.
While abiding in the self, if you possess true faith, it is called surrender. If you possess surrender, you can forbear any amount of hardship, considering it to be the gift of God. The glory of the self is revealed to the extent you can surrender to the divine.
Bliss is all-pervading. Bliss is the very essence of the self. Happiness attained from the sensory objects of the world is not true. Only when the mind is purified, and thoughts are reduced, do we experience the bliss of the self. The mind that tastes the bliss of the self cannot leave the self. The bliss of the self is nectar.
Fortune does not exist in the marks of the hand. It is dependent upon the effort of the man. Do not distance yourselves from the ground realities in the name of horoscopes. You will reap good for good and bad for bad. We should always be ready for the call of the divine by leading a simple, natural, and good life.
Only the brave can conquer the world. One who can kick this world like a football in a playground. Only they are courageous in a true sense. One cannot transcend the timidity of the heart without courage. If you want a bright future, you need courage and love. Your growth in courage is limited to the extent of your increase in purity. Bhishma said, "The only remedy for all the diseases is courage."
One cannot progress without cleanliness. The cleanliness of the thinking faculty is more important than the cleanliness of the body. The flaws of the body get burnt in the burial ground, but the weaknesses of the thinking faculty don't get burnt in the burial ground. They accompany you in the next birth. Without purifying the thinking faculty, one cannot transcend the hug of nature, grow in terms of knowledge, and thereby cannot overcome one's body consciousness. Therefore, whatever you listen, see, or do, think of purity alone. Then you will be purified. Without purity of mind, one cannot make self-inquiry. If self-inquiry resembles the engine of a train, purity resembles the railway track.
Whatever God has forbidden us to do, we do the same thing. Whatever God has prescribed us to do, we don't do. This is our weakness. Our weaknesses represent our sins. Sorrow is born out of sin. The root cause of timidity is sin only. A sinner cannot hear about the truth or see the truth. Sin will subject us to disturbance. They cannot fight against the sin who do not possess purity within their heart. A sinner cannot enter heaven or the higher worlds. He will only attain hell or the lower worlds.